I hope all the decisions and their families are made and happy. I'd like to welcome everyone back to class. I am taking second part of Unit 2 of your corporate accounting paper. This is my second class or second discussion on the topic of buyback. The topic of discussion for today's class is provisions of the Companies Act 2013 as regards buyback of shares. Dear student friends, I hope you still remember what the term buyback means. Let me explain to you once again. Buyback of shares can be or of specified securities can be defined as a process where the company takes back the shares from the shareholders or the market at the price higher than the market price. A cash-rich company can adopt this process of buyback in order to utilize its additional cash that it had at its disposal instead of going into a new venture or launching a new product, which can be risky. It is also a process when the company wants to restructure or redefine its capital structure. It can adopt the process of buyback of shares. So you have to know these provisions. One, talking about your language, this can come as a short questions for 5 marks. And secondly, while attempting your practical questions, certain provisions are important because it affects the way you write your narration or the way you attempt your sum. And last but not the least, this provision each can come, or the conditions, each of them can come as a short question, that is for 1 mark, as a fill in the blanks, true and false, as a 1 mark questions. So let's now start. Let's see what are these provisions. They are generally 10 in number. So coming on with the first provision, the first condition that a company should fulfill before it adopts the process of buyback is that it should be authorized by the Articles of Association. Secondly, the company, if the board of directors, when it decides that it should go for a buyback process, should get it authorized by a special resolution in the general meeting. Now here are 2 conditions that children you should remember. If it is sanctioned by a special resolution, which is necessary, then the entire buyback process should be completed in 1 year from the date of special resolution. Secondly, there is an exception to this special resolution. There can be certain circumstances when the special resolution is needed. Now, if the proportion of buyback by the company of its securities and or shares is less than 10%, then the board of directors did not obtain the special resolution of the shareholders. It can go itself take a resolution and go forward with the process. On the other hand, if the buyback is greater than 10% of the paid up capital and free reserve, then it has to be sanctioned by a special resolution in the general meeting. Now let me make it more clear by an example. If you see example A, PB Limited has 60,000 equity shares. It wants to buy back 4,000 of its equity shares. Now, if you see the proportion of buyback, 4,000 divided by 60,000 is 6.66%. Yes, which is less than 10%. So such a company can go forward with the process without obtaining a special resolution in the general meeting. On the other hand, if you look at example number B, XY Limited has 50,000 equity shares and it wants to buy back 10,000 of the equity shares. So what is the proportion? 10,000 divided by 50,000, it is 20%. So here it requires to take the pass or obtain the sanction of the general meeting by a special resolution. Now, when you attempt your sum, students, first you have to please calculate the proportion of buyback, because if it is less than 10% when you write the narration, then the buyback as per the board resolution number dash dated dash. On the other hand, if it is more than 10%, then you have to write the narration as per buyback as per special resolution as per general meeting number dash dated dash. So children, please be careful what is the proposed, because accordingly your narrations will be affected, and you should write your narration accordingly, whether it's above 10% or less than 10%. Now, number 3 condition that has to be fulfilled is that it cannot buy an endless number of shares, buy back endless number of shares. The maximum amount in a financial year that a company can buy back is 25% of the total paid up capital and free reserves. That it cannot buy back in a particular year more than 25% of the paid up capital or free reserve. That is the maximum limit, that is 25%. Now, once it adopts the process of buyback, because it will be using its liquid, it is going to use financial resources. The company has to make sure that a debt equity ratio, debt including both secured and unsecured debts and equity capital, that is, as you all know, paid up capital inclusive of its free reserve, the ratio should be 2:1. Now, this 2:1 ratio may be modified by the central government at times. So, accordingly, if modified, the company will act accordingly. So, the debt equity ratio post buyback should be 2:1. This is just to ensure that the financial stability of the company. The fifth condition that a company should fulfill for buyback is that the securities or the shares that are to be bought back should be fully paid up. On the other hand, in other words, that is partly paid up shares or securities cannot be bought back by a company, or it should be fully paid up. If we talk about the sixth condition, if it is a listed company, that is the shares or securities are listed in the stock exchange, the process of buyback is guided by the regulations of specified by SEBI, that is Security Exchange Board of India. In case of unlisted companies, it has to follow the regulation that is in Rome. Yes, so this is a difference between listed companies and unlisted companies. Now, the companies, when you want to buy back from the share, from whom can it buy back those shares? It can be the existing shareholders from a proportional basis. It can be from the open market, that in general, or from the odd law. There may be certain special characteristic equities which can be, or securities which can be bought back. Or it can also be bought back from the employees who had been previously issued shares as per the employee stock option scheme. So these are the 4 sources from which a company can buy back its shares. Now, once the shares has been bought back, that is, the company has received back physically the shares, then it has to destroy it within 7 days of the buyback, that is, physically extinguish it or physically destroy those shares after it receives within 7 days of the buyback process. Condition number 8, after the buyback has been completed, the entire process has been completed, the company can make no fresh offer of buyback for another 1 year or 12 months from the date of closing of the buyback process. What it means is the company can make no offer of buyback within a period of 1 year from the date of the previous buyback. That is, there should be a gap of one year or 12 months from one buyback to another buyback. Last but not the least, once it has completed the process, it has to file with the Registrar of Companies and SEBI within 30 days of buyback a return containing the entire details of the buyback, what shares has been bought back, how they have been made, from whom they have been bought back. All the details, a return has to file containing all those details with the Registrar of Companies or with the SEBI. So, students, let's go back again just to recapitulate the entire 10 conditions to be fulfilled. First conditions to be fulfilled is it should be authorized by the articles. Then we have to see what is the proportion of buyback. If it is less than 10% of the paid up capital and its free reserves, then the board can carry on with its resolution in the board meeting. Otherwise, if it is more than 10%, then it has to obtain a special resolution in the general meeting. Third, the maximum amount that can be bought back at a time is 25% of the total paid up capital and its free reserve. The debt equity ratio post buyback should be 2:1. At times it may be changed by the central government, and accordingly the company has to act. Now, on the shares or the specified securities that a company is thinking to buy back should be fully paid up. If it's a listed company, then the process of buyback will be guided by the regulations of SEBI, and in case of unlisted company, they should follow all the guidelines that are in vogue in relation to the buyback process. Or the sources from which a company can buy back are four, that is existing shareholders, the open market, the odd lots, or the securities that has been previously issued to the existing employees. 8. Within 7 days of the completion of the buyback process, the company should physically destroy the shares and the securities that has been bought back. 9th, after the buyback has been completed for another 12 months or 1 year, the company cannot make a fresh offer of buyback. So there should be a gap of at least 1 year between one buyback to the second buyback. Last but not the least, after the buyback procedure has been completed, a return has to be filed with the registrar of companies and the SEBI containing the details of the entire buyback process. So students, these are some of the 10 conditions a company should comply with when it adopts the process of buyback of shares or other specified securities. Now, after this, we should also know the resources which can be utilized by a company to buy back our shares from the open market or from its shareholders. Now, basically, there are three resources. One is free reserves. Secondly, the second source is securities premium account. I hope you remember when the shares are issued or securities are issued at a premium, that is at a price higher than the nominal value of the securities, then the extra amount collected is kept on a separate account, that is securities premium account. That account can be utilized. Then, for buyback of a particular security or shares, fresh issue of shares or securities can be made, and the proceeds from such issue can be utilized to buy back of shares. But again, you have to remember here, children, that buyback of shares cannot be made out of proceeds of the same kind of shares. What I mean to say is, for example, if the company wants to buy back equity shares and it wants to use the proceeds of the fresh issue of shares, then it cannot issue again equity shares, because it's buying back equity shares, it cannot make fresh issue of equity shares. So the proceeds of a issue of preference shares or debentures can be utilized to buy back equity shares. What I mean to say is, same kind of securities cannot be issued to buy back that kind of shares or securities. So you can issue debentures or preference shares to buy back equity shares. Okay, so these are the three sources of funds that a company can utilize in its process of buyback. I hope students, you have understood at least the 10 conditions that you should know the company should adopt while buying back its shares, and the sources of fund that a company can utilize to buy back its sources. Now, these sources of fund, you may get numerous sources in the question when you solve a practical problem, but you should know what actually can be utilized by a company to buy back. Because in case of a buyback, you may require to use more than one source. It's not necessarily that only one, it is only free reserve or only securities may be sufficient. It may be the company may have to utilize more than one sources. So you should know what are the sources that a company can utilize to buy back its shares. Now let's recapitulate let me see whether you understood what I have explained today in the class. Just 2 questions I have posted. I have given a timer also. Let's see. Number A, the debt equity ratio post buyback should be dash. I'm repeating the question again. The debt equity ratio post buyback should be dash. I give you 1 second to read the question by yourself and comprehend what is being asked in the question before I start my timer. Okay, the 5 seconds are over. Let me see whether what is the answer you have. It is 2:1. The next question that I have for you is the buyback of shares must not exceed %, of the total paid up capital or free reserves of a company. What is the maximum amount that a company can buy back at a time? I hope you understood the question and can recollect what is the answer. Here starts your timer. Got your answer? Not yet? Please, let's see. What's the maximum amount a company can buy back? It is 25%. So these were few examples that you can get as a short question from the conditions given to you, conditions of buyback given to you. I just tried with a timer just to see whether you could comprehend. So students, so today what I have discussed, I hope it's clear. The conditions and the sources of fund. If you have not understood, I am always there to clear your doubts. Anytime feel free to clear your queries. Thank you for patiently listening to the video and trying to comprehend what I'm trying to say. I hope I'm clear with what I have discussed in the class. Thank you for watching the video.